I kind of not wanting to focus on this COVID thing that is still around us, but there are elements that are general around this. I think it would be useful to have some light around this in terms of um, what I see and sense and feel is the democracy and freedom of speech and personal liberties and all these things are being eroded, it seems to me, in lots of ways. And so I don't know what the question is, but I hope you get the gist of what I'm trying to say in terms of feelings and emotions. And
Yeah. Well, here on this platform, I avoid going into any form of politics or right or wrong, because ultimately, in the unfolding of consciousness on this planet, whatever is okay. Consciousness has no judgment. On the human level of the consciousness, perhaps, of this planet and the energy of the humans on this planet, everything is in a state of evolution. If we look back through history here, ages have come and gone on this planet, ice ages, and civilizations have risen and fallen. And it seems that at the moment, the playing out of the human game is going through a crisis. And each of us will be playing out the patterns that are here. Whatever patterns we talk about our individual patterns, and as the patterns fall away and there is greater and greater clarity and the patterns are seen through, then there is inner freedom. But there still is a dharmic path, and that is the path that is laid before us. And that will depend on the patterns that are here. And each of us may have a different role in this lifetime. Will be, due to that makeup, we will be drawn to different careers, we'll be drawn to play out different actions, to make different choices. None of those are right or wrong, but some lead to more suffering and others to greater ease and flow. At the moment, we can see that there is chaos, confusion, and that fear is being the opposite to love, is almost become a weapon. So the question that I ask here, if there's a decision to be made, is this choice coming from love or is it coming from fear? If I'm making a choice out of fear, well, I just wouldn't make that choice. The only choice to be made is a choice that comes from love. Now, we all, being patterned beings as we are, still running our different patterns that haven't completely played out. We are free from our karma or our patterns when those patterns are complete. There is nothing left there to be experienced. In that state, we become free. But the choices we make will depend on the patterns that are still running here. And some of us will have important roles to play. We'll be moved by consciousness. Action occurs. It is when the separate self claims to be doing and acting and choosing that confusion comes in. If we are moved by life itself, it is impossible to do anything else. Then we know we are following our dharma because we are in flow. There is no confusion around that choice. It is clear. It is flowing. It is open. There is no heartache or gut ache or tension around it. It may be a hard choice. It may be a challenging choice. But it's not us that is making the choice. We are being moved and lived if in flow. And when life is such, then we know we are in flow with our dharma, or consciousness is flowing through here clearly and openly. I think I talked a couple of weeks ago about the healing mirror, which is a term I've used for many years. And that is, when we polish the mirror so that consciousness is clearly reflected here, and the sense of separateness is not getting in the way of that, then clarity lives. I understand as a human that there's a lot of controversy going on at the moment. There are lies being shared. There is all sorts of opinions and judgments around what is happening. People's so-called freedom is being taken away, and it's not an easy time when there's lockdowns, etc. I understand that. But here we're taking a very high point of view here. All of that is as it is. Right now in this moment, none of that can be changed, but how that's experienced here can be changed. If I go into the mind about that and start creating scenarios and jumping on the mind train, looping round and round the tracks with my opinion and how things should be and how things could be, suffering will arise. If I go, that's how it is right now. It may not be my highest choice. I might identify that there's some negative energy at play here. But this is how it is. For me to be clear, to be light, then I let go of that and simply be in the moment, available as consciousness, flowing in the moment. And if in a moment or a moment arises where I feel I need to do something, then do it. Be clear in that action. whether that's running a podcast, whether that's writing to your local MP. I don't know if you call it that in the UK, but writing to your local magistrate or something. Whatever that is, if there's an action to be done, be clear in that. But going round and round with the mind, or lots of speaking that is not doing anything to change the situation, will lead to an arising of emotion, will lead to suffering, to inner chaos. There's nothing wrong with any action, but let it be clear. Let it be from a place of love and stay in flow with that.
Yes, that's lovely, actually. Um, in myself, I feel pretty relaxed about what's going on because I kind of get the Leela that we talked about, and I can keep returning to that. You know, it's a moment by moment thing when I move away from what we talk about as the bigger picture, and every now and then I'm drawn to, you know, someone sends me some information about how someone's been harassed in a supermarket or something. So the action for me is I've been avoiding all media, actually, social media, radio, TV, everything. But today I feel like sharing what I was sent because it depicts an aspect which could be seen as Nazi Britain, basically. So that's what I'm kind of wanting people to see, how certain people are being treated as they go and do their shopping in a supermarket.
And yes, there are some very unloving things happening at the moment. There are some very questionable tactics. And there's nothing wrong with being informed, as long as you can handle that and see that in the moment as it is without going into the emotion of it. If it's going to cause chaos, mental health issues, etc., then for some people it's difficult to be with the truth as it is. However, I remain informed to a certain extent, but I feel the truth, so I just sit in that. And I planted lettuces today in the garden and went for a cup of tea or whatever is taken in the moment. It is remembering, though, when we, or for instance, you know, just as was just said, I did this, I did that. Consciousness was flowing and we find ourselves being moved, don't we? Being lived. Whenever we are going or feeling overwhelmed by the emotion or the mental vrittis, then that is the separate self, because consciousness is never overwhelmed by any of this. You know, how could consciousness be? It is all of this. And it is beyond our little mind to understand and comprehend the awesomeness of that. But we can feel it. Where am I? Am I in this hand? Am I in this finger? Am I my thoughts? Am I the beliefs? All of this is transient. No, I am the unchanging flow of the universe. And the same I am here is the same I am there. And to remember this, if we are moved clearly, absolutely, we know we must do certain things, whatever that is. There's no judgment. Do it.
I just wanted to say thank you because all over the world we're living the same situation, but not in the same way. So I'm grateful because through the meeting we do on Sunday, you remind us that, that it's all okay, where, where we actually every day, uh, it's a constant, I don't know how to say that, but so much anger around. Like people for no reason would just look at you full of anger and like talk to you in a bad way. And it's just so difficult sometimes to keep being focused on, okay, it's okay, I am. Sometimes it's just difficult because all around there's so much aggression. There is who knows why. And thank you because mm, if I wouldn't have come to this meeting on Sunday, uh, it would have been so much more difficult because all around me there are no people aware of what we are talking about here. So just thank you.
You're welcome. The sad thing is, Ella, anger comes from fear. People are afraid. And very sadly, the media has projected this fear into people's minds. And that's what I was speaking about before. But this is just as it is now. Everything changes. The one thing we can rely on is change, that this too shall pass. And remembering that the one constant is the I am presence, which is love itself, which is who we truly are. But if fear rises, it is impossible to see the truth. It is impossible to be in touch with I am presence, with the love that connects all as one, if fear is the dominant emotion. Because where does fear come from? Fear arises first from thought as a response, and then that thought ignites sensations in the body, and we experience those as fear. Only the separate self can experience that. The one I am presence cannot experience fear. There is no place for fear in pure, peaceful presence as love. There is no place for fear. But when we identify that this body is who I am, and if this body dies, I die. You see how fear is born there of death. the death of I, the separate identity. I can never die. The body will die, what we call die. This flesh will only last so long. It's vulnerable. It will go back to the element of earth and matter. But the I presence, the aliveness that we feel as when you think about yourself as a little child, that same feeling that was there all through your life and is there now, that is no longer experiencing this world as we know it because its vehicle passes, but it never dies. It is consciousness itself. You know, it's interesting sometimes to look at people who've had near-death experiences. All say it is a wonderful, blissful, beautiful experience. So why are we so afraid of this physical death that's attached to mind, that's attached to a particular body being in a particular way? The fear of the loss of the separate identity and the imagined control that we have, which of course we don't. As if I could be in control of anything. Creates fear. So fear not, child of the universe, you are free.
It's okay. I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you to Katie as well for the message that I just seen. I totally understand what you say. I just don't know sometimes how to not react to unnecessary aggression from the outside people.
Well, you will react until you don't react. Reaction will happen until it doesn't. You'll slip in the doo-doo until you don't slip in the doo-doo. We'll fall back into, separation until we don't. Just keep remembering. Keep coming back to love.
Thank you.
What I'm, we all exist in our, I've said this before, we all exist in our echo chambers, and so it's really tempting to believe the what we're getting from our echo chamber. And so sitting in that place of not knowing and acknowledging that might be true, it might not be true, because where is the truth, is really interesting. And what you were saying about staying in that place of love reminds me of the fact that Ramdas had a photograph of Donald Trump on his shrine, because he was, it's a very difficult thing when we feel we're being oppressed, when we feel we're being controlled, to actually stay in that place of love and acknowledge that if we give our power over, if we allow ourselves to feel trapped. But it's a really hard thing to do, to love that person that I might feel is oppressing me, I might feel is really angry with me. In that moment it's really tough practice to just stay in that place of love. I guess that's what this time is calling of us, though, because there is so much division. And yeah, so thank you both, Ellie, for your question and for sharing so deeply, and then Soraya for that just deep response. Thank you.
Yes, it is. It is difficult to offer love, because when we see oppression, when we see nastiness, when we see meanness, when we see anger, particularly when we see that and notice that it's affecting others or yourself in a way that is less than loving, it can be very challenging. However, that oppressor, that person who's expressing nastiness or controlling energy or whatever it is, that is someone stuck in suffering. That is someone who does not acknowledge love as who we truly are and what we truly are. That is someone who is acting from a damaged attachment to a separate sense of identity. And sadly, who perhaps has not yet understood that all is one, and what is here and what occurs here also occurs there. And that's why I love the Ho'oponopono prayer. It's very beautiful in the simplicity. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And acknowledging that when we come across this in our life, it's a reminder. We see the anger out there. We see the oppression out there. Where is that here? What an opportunity to clear and disidentify from those separate aspects and remind ourselves. And again, language is difficult. Remind ourselves. Remember who we truly are. So when we experience that, the fact that we're experiencing that means that it's the separate self here experiencing that. Because the I am identity does not experience anger or pain or suppression. Nothing can suppress consciousness, try as it may. Nothing can suppress love, try as it may. Jesus says this as he turned the other cheek. There is nothing here to harm. Forgive them, they know not what they do. My Father and I are one. Consciousness and I are one. Rumi speaks about the love being the field of flowers through which we all dance. All the great poets and philosophers and and teachers have spoken of this one unified field where we meet and there is no judgment. No judgment for the murderer or the thief. No judgment for the saint or the sinner. Yet, here on this plane of apparent existence, we are playing out our patterns. And just as we are playing out our patterns, those who we point towards are playing out their patterns. So shine your light, clean the mirror, let the love shine, because it will melt the hardest of hearts. I'm going to turn over to Terry now. Go ahead, Terry.
Namaste. So we began this session with that sense of awareness is the same sense of awareness that we have at birth. And through that process of coloring through life experience, the veil of Maya is built that colors this pure awareness, this pure way of seeing. And as that awareness begins to see through this veil again, which is what's happening here, it's like this veil is wafting in the breeze in front of us, and we see these glimpses through the veil of that simplicity, that clarity. And one of the greatest tools of Maya is fear. As Saraya said, as long as there is fear, there can be no true understanding, because the hackles are up. The defense system is in play. And that defense system, as I have often spoken of before, is this identification with the whole background of thought. And the safest place, the place of peace, is this present moment. So how do we get to this present moment there is no way to get to this present moment, because this is the time of the direct path. We don't have time to join the monastery and spend 50 years in meditation. We don't have time to move in circles anymore. We need to realize that we are already where we need to be. And it really means the ending of the spiritual search. It means the ending of looking. If we really want to be free, no walls can hold us if we are truly free. And there is no step into freedom. As Mahatma Gandhi said, freedom is the pathway. There is no pathway to freedom. The freedom is the path. So we need to be free in whatever circumstances flow through our lives. Which means there's nothing wrong with anything, I know some of you may have heard my song, Nothing Wrong with Anything. There's nothing wrong. And when we reach that point where we see that, we're free because we're totally accepting what is. Which doesn't mean we just sort of allow whatever to happen. I mean, if something happens, we will respond. We have to trust that we will respond. We will act. It's not the ending of movement in life. It's a totally different way of living, completely different way of living. Free from the bondage of habits, of behavior, of reactivity. This is the place of non-reactivity. Not that we don't respond to what's happening, but it's not me that responds. There is a response happening. Anger is happening. Sorrow is happening. We are sorrowing, sorrowing, joying, being. So being is the greatest light, because in that being, we are doing absolutely everything we can by not doing anything. This is the language of Advaita. You cannot speak of it. One of the greatest writings ever written is that the Tao cannot be spoken because it's being. Being. I'm not being. I'm not being anything. As soon as you add anything to the being, it's separation. Being in the flow of creation is the safest place to be. So that's where we need to get to. That's the freedom. There's no freedom in looking at the TV in the morning and saying, well, what level are we at with the lockdown? Can I go 25 kilometers today, or can I go 5? Or it's not that. It's here is the freedom. And this is the most effective way of living.
Thanks, Terry. And of course, many are not called. Many are enjoying the play of Maya so much. They're actually enjoying, and they're attached to suffering. They love the drama. Why would they want to wake up? When I first, it sounds crazy, but it's true. When I first had a massive download and it was so clear to me that I am presence was all that was here, I thought, you know, and of course this thought was coming from separate self, well, that's it. Life's done. There's no point in anything anymore. I actually went through what I call a little bit of spiritual, like being in the desert. I thought nothing is important. Everything I could think that I did in the past, nothing seemed relevant. Nothing seemed important. Nothing called me, so to speak, I was just, it was a very strange experience. And I'm speaking of this because you may experience that or may have experienced that yourself and found it quite confusing. But as that passed and the simple experience of peaceful presence and a new form of clarity existed, and love was natural, not human love, but a different experience of love, then I noticed that action was happening. I noticed that there was still a response to life here. And when there was no separate identity involved in how that should look or be, it became greater and easier, and the flow occurred more naturally. So there was less of Saraya, the separate person, and more, there was movement here, there was action occurring, there was life happening, there was a response happening. And as you can see, here we are on this satsang, because one day I woke up and went, oh, we're starting a satsang. And where did that come from? I have no idea. But here we are. So life will move through us. Life will move. And when that is in flow, there's no conflict. There's no umming and ahhing. There's a greater clarity around it. There's not, oh, should I do it or shouldn't I do it? You just know it is right. And it is done. Or you find yourself doing it before you've even thought as cognized it. Terry and I often go into the garden in the afternoon, and earlier we've thought we might do this or we might do that, and then we find ourselves doing something completely different and come back and oh, actually I found myself, spreading worm juice on the seedlings this afternoon. Oh, I found myself lighting a fire down in the forest. So it's wonderful because it's much more childlike. We don't have to plan everything. Just let it unfold and enjoy the dance. So that's the end of satsang tonight. It's lovely to see you all and to welcome some newcomers tonight. If our sharing sings, then come back again if it's in flow for you, and if it's not, nothing wrong with anything. No judgment here. Namaste.